Okay, so while we get the presentation ready here, I'll introduce Dr. Gallagher. She's the president of Los Angeles City College, one of our power users here in Southern California. And they've rolled this out with a lot of faculty, about 2,000 students, if my memory serves me right. And they've created, even before AI, created over 1,000 applications, I believe, in different areas. And then we also have Marcy Drummond. She's VP of Innovation and
Economic and Social Mobility.
Yeah, that's too much for me.
That's a lot.
So thank you. So with that, I'll hand the word over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mats. Really appreciate it. It's great to be here with you this morning. Actually, this is afternoon now. We want to share with you what we have been doing at City, some data that we have, and the process that we used. So Marcy really has spearheaded this effort. We are hoping to get through the presentation so we can take your questions afterwards, and we can be available for any questions that you have beyond this meeting if you have any questions. We've been collaborating across the country with other educational institutions, so we want to be able to share what we've done. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Marcy now, and she's going to start with a video that we put together, because part of it is the education component for everyone.
Okay, so now we have to do the trick with the hands.
Sorry.
Do the microphone.
Don't hear anything.
You have to set it for... You have to go in some seconds, and it has to be download seconds to the loudspeaker here. Oh, it's not a Mac.
It's not a Mac.
Yeah. I think Marcy is better because we are both Mac people. Sorry for that. There you go. And set it just to play on the device. There you go. And master volume. Yeah. Speaker should be this. Yeah, it's okay. Look, really. There you go.
Okay.
Very good.
Let's try this again.
Okay, this is also very good. Okay, this is okay. Okay, try again.
So we're all always trying to look for innovative ways and creative ways to help students achieve their educational and career goal. And virtual reality is a great platform to get those students involved.
That's it.
At LACC, we are committed to providing all students the opportunity to engage in immersive learning experiences. MetaCity is a faculty-driven approach whereby immersive learning content and experiences are created by faculty that are high quality, accessible, and promote equitable outcomes. The most amazing thing about MSR is that students will be able to access rare content, content that is typically very costly, and content that is quite frankly difficult to access. Imagine that they'll be able to fully engage with this type of instructional and learning material at their fingertips.
The ability to put AR models in the space students are in, for students to use their phone and their keyboard to move through a space, the physicality of walking around directly engaged students. They're in control of how they move into space. So it's the difference if you're an art teacher, going to be showing them a picture of a sculpture and taking them to the sculpture to explore it freely in 3 dimensions. I can do the same thing with chemistry. I want to show them a picture of the molecule. I want to take them to the molecule. I want them to have the molecule 6 feet high in front of them so they can explore it from all angles, and that's only possible here.
In healthcare, you're exposing students to the actual clinical environment that they hope to work in one day. They don't have access to that from a basic classroom. So you're giving them that bridge, or that filling that gap between the basic foundational knowledge you're learning in the classroom and linking that to the actual career they want to enter.
MetaCity has provided coaches for faculty as well as individuals who help to create objects that faculty may need in
that's the what we put together to show. So now we've taken what we've done on the road and we're starting to demo.
Okay, so what you saw in the video were lessons that were created by our faculty. Because we're educators, we always sort of start with the research science. It's very intuitive that one of the lessons you did see was this is how the instructor typically teaches that chemistry lesson in 2D. And then you see the model that the instructor actually built, which is the 3D molecule that actually got animated. And so, we naturally experienced the world in 3D. Before, students had to try to translate in their head what this 2D model might look like into a 3D model. Once we were able to do this using EON XR, then students actually got to experience what the model looks like in the real world. And there's a study right there that we put in there around the difference between learning in 3D versus 2D. You saw the data also about the use of AR and actually the impact that it has on the brain and why it immediately stimulates the brain with a surprise response. We think this is one of the reasons why it immediately increases student engagement. And then what they are learning, they have very higher visual attention, which enables them to encode what they're learning into memory at a rate 70% higher. This is data from comparing traditional learning in a classroom to using VR in the classroom, very similar to the results that Matt shared with you earlier around using VR in training. One of the things that we wanted to know sort of how fast is the market going to grow and is there really an appetite for this? So we've been doing some market analysis, gathering data for several years now and have been monitoring it, and it's growing faster than our initial projections said. So basically, this was a study that was done last year by McKinsey & Company trying to find out what consumers' appetites were for the metaverse. And as you can see, 59% of the consumers actually prefer at least one activity that they use typically in their daily life in an immersive world. But for education, 72% of them prefer to learn using in an immersive environment than in a traditional classroom. People were asked, are you going to join the metaverse? And what reasons would compel you to do so? And you could see that number 4 was for education purposes. Last but not least, and I have a flyer, by the way. Was there a question on that?
I was just taking a picture.
Okay, and I have a flyer that I'll distribute that has this data in it as well. And then last but not least, this was the projections for the ed tech investments in the marketplace. And you can see AR, VR is outpacing the AI, but with the integration of AI, I guess you can combine those two figures and get something that's more realistic about what we've seen today. As I said, we've been collecting this data, so there was some more recent growth that we had data on, and now we have all the projected. And as far as education goes, these ones I put in red are really important to us. By 2023, in the U.S. alone, it'll be estimated there'll be 176 million users already using AR, VR. And then the AR, VR market is projected to reach 1.2 trillion by 2035. By the way, that 2035 figure came from a McKinsey & Company study, and they recently updated it. It was lower in July of 2022, and they recently increased it in January because the market was growing faster than they initially had projected. So, you saw this earlier from Dan's comment about how we've gone from user-created. When we first started looking at AR, VR as an educational institution, we basically said, well, there are 3 routes we can go. We can hire a company to completely customize our content and our learning for our, what we're using in education. We can buy something that's pre-built, and zSpace and HoloHuman, and many educational institutions are familiar with those. Or we can go the 100% user-created method where, we're just training people on coding, how to code and create these things. And the nice thing about EON XR is, and now with AI, there's a whole other category, but we loved it because it was in that sweet spot where you could use pre-built content, involve the user or the creator, which is our faculty, into developing educational content. So far, we've found that the use cases in education are limitless, both inside and outside of the classroom. We have used them in over 65 different subjects so far. And you can see, the faculty are getting very creative in how they are using EON XR to develop content, and there's some quotes there. One thing we are finding too is that faculty are changing their language. So one thing they are saying, which I've never heard faculty say before, is like, when I start to build a lesson, what is the experience I'm trying to create for students? What is the story I'm trying to tell? And these are not words, we've talked about what is the knowledge I'm trying to impart, but now they're thinking about all of the ways in which a student would interact with content and with materials to create a really rich sort of learning environment for students. Did you want to jump in anytime, Mary, if you want to add anything?
No, keep going. I mean, I can say 1,000,001 things, but I'll let you keep going.
In the U.S., it's March Madness, which is our big basketball tournament, and I used to coach basketball. So one of the things I know about basketball is that to be a championship team, you really need to focus on the fundamentals first. That enables you to scale and to get to excellence quickly. So these were the fundamentals we focused on when we first started using XR. We really knew we had to provide extensive support for our faculty. So we put together a very robust professional development program. We have a team of coaches, and now we've expanded that to include their peer mentors. So faculty have gone through the program, created content, are now also peer mentors. Our coaches are actually professionals. They have not only do they know how to use the EON XR platform and create content, but they have specialized knowledge. One, for example, has a lot of experience around creating accessible content for people with hearing and visual limitations. They are put into peer groups, and they review each other's lessons and help each other build lessons. And we have a quality, we provide them with all the equipment that they need. And we do a lot around intellectual property training as well as compliance. Every lesson is mapped to the student learning outcomes. We've developed a lesson quality review. So every lesson, I say, gets peer reviewed by their peers against this quality rubric. We do a lot around accessibility and how to do assessments. And then you saw the picture of our MetaCity makerspace that's going to be opening any day now. That is happening. So in 1 year, because we focused on these basics, this is what we were able to do in 1 year. So we have 123 faculty and staff that have been trained and are using EON XR. Those faculty, as of the end of January, had created 968 lessons that have been consumed more than 12,000 times. So we were able to grow exponentially, and I do believe not only is it because of the ease of the EON XR platform, but because we did focus on those fundamentals. Over 1,800 students have used AR/VR lessons so far. And then the students also have an option to earn a digital badge. There's a little mini course they can take on the use of EON XR and AR/VR. And 635 of them on their own, not required as part of a class, have gone and done that. So the student appetite for learning more and more about AR/VR or XR is huge. And there's a quote from our student. This is what faculty have said. Going into using XR education, they said before they got to experience it, we asked them, why are you interested, and what do you think the advantages of using XR are? And you can see the 3 basic advantages they came up with there. Then after they used it, we asked them exactly what happened. So this is why you wanted to use it. What did you actually achieve with students? And you can see student engagement is by far #1. They saw huge gains in student engagement. They also saw increased performance on tests and tasks, and they also measured increased retention in learning. So we experienced through the use of this exactly what studies tell you should experience. And then last but not least, we asked faculty about, we have things called student learning outcomes, so every course has identified student learning outcomes. So we asked about, did it improve the performance on those student learning outcomes? And 79% of the faculty said indeed it did. I know I went fast because I know we're trying to make up time, but at this point, we'd like to open it up for any questions that people might have. Okay, we'll start over here.
So what kind of other equipment, so iPads, But what kind of, are you guys using Oculus or any kind of AR glasses?
Yes, we're using, for sure, iPads because of the LiDAR technology when we scan objects. They have a 360 camera. The Oculus headsets, various, that sort of equipment for the creation of content. So every faculty member gets to check those out. They're all given an iPad, so they don't have to check out an iPad, that's theirs. But then they share the cameras because not everybody needs them all the time. So we have an inventory that faculty can check out. Our biggest challenge has been around the student equipment. I'll have to say that. This has not been without challenges. Our students are struggling a little bit with the technology because we have very low, a majority of our students are very low income. So they may be using older mobile phones. So we now have equipment available in our library and also in the MetaCity makerspace for students who may not have the technology they need to operate this. Or they also have low-speed internet, so there's some issues sometimes there for our students. Yes?
A couple of education-oriented questions. Are these lessons used in a flipped classroom setting, or are they used in a traditional lecture homework setting?
All of the above. So they are used, some of our students are 100% online. So so all of the lessons are integrated with our learning management system. We use Canvas. And so an instructor will assign an assignment and it will launch the XR lesson. Sometimes it'll be used by a faculty member during a live lecture or an online lecture to demonstrate things. Sometimes it's used in a flipped setting where students, for example, in our auto, examples, a lot of our faculty love this for safety. So they'll have the students do a safety demonstration first in a flipped sort of modality, and then actually take them in the actual lab once they've had that safety orientation in an XR mode. So that they used to spend a lot of time on safety, and now they've really reduced the amount of time they have to spend on safety in this manner. Yes, in the back.
What funding is used to fund this program?
This goes to Dr. Gallagher.
Well, one of the bright spots in the pandemic was that educational institutions received additional funding to use toward the technology needed for this. Prior to receiving the federal funding that we did receive, we had pitched this to several foundations. So we had already been on the road pitching this idea to get a grant to be able to do this. Because we knew that in order to do this and do this well, it would take an investment. And we knew what the investment would be, and we knew that if it would take us 10 years if we didn't do something. So as soon as the HERF money came in, we carved off the top what we needed to get this moving. We also shifted gears in how we were doing it. We had a very, very slow start initially because we kind of didn't really know how to do it, frankly. We were guessing on how to do it. So we decided to hire, we're in Hollywood, we're located in Hollywood. So we decided to hire a couple of young filmmakers because they know how to take something that's in a book or even an idea that they have and make it come to life. So we hired them plus a technical person who understood the integration with the learning management system and the accessibility. We put the three of them together and they made magic for us is what they did. And we were able to create training modules for faculty and for students so that, and we will make those available for people to just go ahead and sign up to get the training because it really gets us started well. And it's been the reason that we could accelerate and handle 50 faculty per semester. We've got our third cohort of 50 faculty going through right now.
Yes.
So what is your annual budget for this? It's all about money, right?
Our initial investment, what we set aside for our initial investment was $3 million. Because understand, we had no equipment, we had no personnel. You can't do this, give somebody this as an extra job because it won't get done, right? So we just really decided, I have a philosophy, go big or go home. And we just decided we're going to jump in with both feet and swim. And so our initial investment was about $3 million. Our annual investment is come down to under $1 million and closer to $500,000. It is because we do pay faculty to develop the content. They have to meet certain milestones and benchmarks and create. This gets assessed, it's peer reviewed, so they don't just get a check because they created something. It has to be something that is good for the students, but the annual investment we expect to be $500,000, and it ebbs and flows with equipment replacement that we need. But remember, we had to create a lab in our library. We created a makerspace, so we did a big investment initially, but the ongoing we think will be very manageable.
I also think our initial costs were higher because we were kind of pioneering this. So there's a learning curve, and with that comes some costs. So there are ways we could bring those costs down now that we know what we know. That wouldn't be, requires that huge of an investment up front. Yes.
You brought up a great point. How important and how pivotal is the makerspace in relationship to the virtuality kind of thing that you?
Well, for us, the truth and reality of it is we don't need a makerspace, but we want a place that's just this wow place that makes everybody want to engage with this, because we know. I knew the very first time I ever experienced virtual reality, Rick, you'll remember this. This was 5 years ago. I knew we have to do this. We have to get all of our students exposed to this. This is a necessity. This is not a luxury, because the learning that takes place is phenomenal. So the makerspace is an attraction. It's like Disneyland, because it's not necessary, but we know the more people visit it, the more we show this. The video we did was to show it, was to get out there, the more people will engage with it. That's what we want.
I would say one more thing. We also see it as a space to work with our K-12 partners to bring in youth and start to get them engaged as well, and have the support, somebody there who can support them.
Well, I just had a follow-up on that, and that is mixed reality, which is really expensive right now, is going to happen, but I think the makerspace fills in that gap quite well, because now you can have a conversational piece that engages a few people. So
yes.
Yeah. So what was the impact on student dropout rates?
Well, okay, so we do have somebody who's doing their doctoral dissertation right now. So part of the issue around the research is that the entire course is not in XR, it's lessons. So it's a microcosm of a course. So it's a little hard for us to attribute retention rates. So we can ask about the retention of the material they learned during that lesson. And we have anecdotal information about faculty around, especially when they're using it as a capstone project, about how they've seen the retention in the class go up, they've seen better performance in the class, but we don't have that specific data yet, but we hope to have it by the end of this semester because of the study that's being done.
You have some success stories in given assessments or exams inside the XR environment.
Yes, so right now we are using the assessments as sort of a self-assessment for these students, and then they're given a supplementary assessment that's actually graded. And I'll tell you why we're doing it that way. Number one is we still have some students, for accessibility reasons or technology reasons, that still cannot get the lesson to operate. So, we don't want to put high stakes assessments in this yet until we have that technology nailed in terms of, students, especially with students online. If they're an in-person student, they can go to our library, but if they're a wholly online student that doesn't live anywhere near our campus, that could still be a barrier for them. But we did find, and Dr. Gallagher will talk about this, we create two versions of every lesson. We have the XR lesson, and then we have an equally effective, accessible, for those who do education in the U.S., we have to have an equally effective, alternative, accessible lesson. So we have two versions of it, and so our students use both. So if they can't access the lesson in XR, they're accessing that equally accessible one. We have students who do, most of our students do both lessons, honestly, and we can see how much better they do on the assessments when they're doing one versus the other in both. So I'm stealing your thunder a little bit, but what we found is those who do the traditional lesson, they do a certain performance standard on the assessment. Those who do the XR only do it higher, and those that do both do even better yet. So.
Are there certain subjects in school that you guys have not broken into, or there is an interest, or that you're hoping to, but aren't as obvious as the sciences or other things?
Well, we had interest across disciplines across the campus. We limit the number of faculty who can go through the training because we want it to be high quality. So we actually have a waiting list of faculty who want to go through this. We are expanding our, we're actually hiring some faculty for MetaCity, and that will expand our opportunity to have faculty trained and lessons developed. So I believe we'll have lessons across all disciplines within a year.
About 2/3 of our lessons are created in the liberal arts, humanities, and about 1/3 are in the sciences and career technical education. So we thought that would be the opposite. You look at this and you say it's a natural for, career or technical sort of education, but we found that it's been the opposite in terms of, which is even more interesting because faculty have to really kind of flip the switch on how you use XR as a metaphor, for example, for teaching more sort of concrete, lessons that they used to teach in the past.
And I just wanted to add, one of the things that the faculty have told us is that they are really enjoying this because they're allowed to be much more creative with how they're delivering instruction. And they have been extremely creative. I mean, I'll tell a few things this afternoon when I have a panel again, but it's been phenomenal for faculty and students, which is why we have a waiting list of faculty wanting to do this. Once we get the MetaCity makerspace open, we expect that that's going to be an extremely busy area.
Any more questions? Yes.
Are all these lessons kept in a central repository for the college, as in they're shared across several faculty, or is it every faculty has their own intellectual property?
You want to start it and I can ask, okay?
So we own the content.
Okay.
The faculty are paid to create the content, therefore we own the content. Okay. If we license the content, which frankly we're working on that right now, we will still own the content, and any revenue will regenerate into the lion's share of it back into MetaCity to continue to develop it, because we see this as, this is the here and now and the future as we go. And as Dan indicated to us, we're going to see different versions every month, and so we have to be prepared for what's in front of us.
Thank you.
I would also add that we encourage our faculty to share the content and make it better so that every iteration of that lesson becomes better and better, more advanced, more features. We also have some blind review being done by college students who sort of rate the lessons. And so that also is a feedback mechanism into how to improve on the lessons that are in the library.
Do you use advisory meetings with industry leaders and your teachers to try to hone in and really get the curriculum up to date when it comes to this?
We haven't yet, but we are hiring 2 full-time tenure-track faculty for MetaCity. One will be an instructional designer, and the other one will be the person administering things, because we do need to pull that in. We've been training as we go along, and learning to fly as we're flying.
And actually, we're moving so fast that Dr. Gallagher doesn't know this, but a couple of our disciplines have pulled in their advisors, shown what they created, got their input on it. Our dental technology and our radiology technology programs have done that. And I wouldn't be surprised if more have, because I'm learning. This is growing so fast and so exponentially. For example, our journalism program now, students are creating XR stories. And so there's one, our first is about to be published. And so they are moving so fast, they're creating things so fast that I'm learning new things every day that's going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if other faculty have reached out to their industry advisors.
So let me just share, the journalism students are doing a story on Pink's hot dog using this. Richard Pink is actually an alum of LACC, so it's really cool that that's coming full circle.
One of the journalism students has dual enrolled in a graduate program in an upper division course, and when she showed the instructor what she's creating in the city course, they said, you can use this to do your capstone project in our upper division course, because you're way ahead of where we would be. Yeah. Yes?
What are some of your ideas for the performing arts, where the students have to come together as a group traditionally to perform together?
Yes, so that's the beautiful thing about the spatial meetings, right, is where the students could, so we do have some work to do around experimenting with that, but that's definitely on our to-do lists that faculty want to do, is use the spatial meetings to do some performances together.
They did some really great things on Zoom. We had a group from our chorale who actually had 18 singers taking different spots. They did this for our graduation 2 years ago, and it was fabulous. So we expect amazing things from them as they go forward with this.
We have this semester also expanded. We've held off on getting students in creating content for various reasons why we held off. But we are now, this semester, our students are now learning how to be creators. So they're going through the courses that our faculty usually take, and they're now starting to create the content. So I'm really excited to see what they come up with.
Thank you.